Well, listener, a personal goal when starting Fungos and Fastballs, our podcast here, was to eventually have an episode on every Hall of Famer in Cooperstown. And yet, even early on, we find ourselves gravitating to episodes of tremendous figures in baseball like Vida Blue and Marvelous Marv Throneberry, who I couldn't imagine the sport of baseball without. But wouldn't it be great if there was an institution, a sort of alternate Hall of Fame, where individuals would be selected not just on war and whip, but on fan support and impact to the game's lore. Well, that in mind, I am delighted to welcome today's guest, Joe Price. He is Professor Emeritus of the Department of Religious Studies and co-director for the Institute of Baseball Studies at Whittier College. And that's the home of today's topic, the Baseball Reliquary. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. I'm very excited to have you today.
It's a delight to join you.
Joe, I know you've done a lot of interviews. I've listened to some of your appearances on podcasts like Hallowed Ground, Midnight Library of Baseball in past years. I hope you don't get bored with some similar questions, but man, people really need to hear these stories there. I want to start with the juxtaposition there in your intro, the Department of Religious Studies and Baseball Studies. And I find that a fascinating combination, not to take time away from the reliquary, but I want to tell how that connects with you, or what's the Venn diagram intersect there?
Well, I'm the son of a minister and the grandson of a minister. So growing up and loving baseball and being immersed in a religious culture, I had to make sense of my multiple loves by basically dealing with baseball and religion and their occasional fusion and often confusion. But nonetheless, it's wonderful to have been able to have the freedom to explore it not only avocationally, but as part of a professional career.
It does, and there is a lot of crossover. I certainly know a lot of LSU fans down here in Louisiana who miss church to go to games. So I guess, that's their religion. And I saw you wrote a book among your writings, Rounding the Bases, Baseball and Religion in America.
Yeah, that one was basically a compilation of various essays that I had written and then a few that were produced specifically for the book about the multiple intersections between baseball and religion in America, from the way that players often affiliated with a particular religious tradition and wanted to express their faithfulness as a part of their public persona, but also the House of David baseball team in the early 20th century and its significance for basically baseball troubadours, and its intersection with the Negro League teams. And then an analysis of how baseball might function as a faith for many people who find that it makes more sense out of their lives than other seasons and rituals.
Interesting. Thank you. I was thinking, Joe, we could start a new tradition here at Fungos and Fastballs to start each episode with the national anthem singing, and thought maybe you might be the man.
She's done a little research on you herself, Joe.
Yeah, well, it's probably not the best. You can find probably the best rendition that's well recorded is the one at the San Bernardino 66ers, Route 66. The last of my performances on the national anthem tour that I did in 2011, when I sang the national anthem at more than 100 minor league ballparks in a single season.
Wow.
That was probably the one. I think there are probably a couple of major league ballpark ones that are also available, but the acoustics are not good here for me to probably offer one off the cuff. It would be in the key of C sharp probably that I would sing, so we'll let that rest.
I had to bring it up.
Yeah, one day when our podcast gets monetized, we'll get better equipment, audio equipment, and we'll have you back on to sing.
Hey, that sounds good.
There's a great website, which all it is a country, and you sing the national anthem as the website goes through each of the stadiums on the map, almost like those old movies that show the plane flying from different areas. I enjoyed that website.
I like that. My nephew and his two daughters put up a map and put pins in the map each day when I was singing so that he could teach them basically American geography. And it was quite a project and quite fun to have seen that map of my progress. 28,712 miles.
That's incredible. Now, before we get to our main topic, I do have to ask, I heard that Bill Veeck's son, Mike Veeck, was one of the earliest people to ask you to perform. Was it then at Comiskey, right?
That's right, in 1977.
So you did not do Disco Demolition Night. You were not the singer.
No, I did not.
That was a little early. We had an episode on that.
And we have one of the records that was destroyed at the Disco Demolition as one of the artifacts in the Reliquary's holdings. But I was singing in Chicago at that point. Bill Veeck had provided an ambidextrous pitcher with a major league tryout as basically to fulfill this weird dream of an ambidextrous pitcher. And so I wrote to Bill Veeck and said, fulfill my dream. I want to sing the national anthem for a major league game. Got a call from Mike Veeck, and I said, so when do you want me to audition? He said, you're fool enough to ask. We're fool enough to let you do it. That was, of course, before Roseanne Barr's fiasco at San Diego. But I was able to sing for Fan Appreciation Day at the end of the 1977 season. And that got me started on an unusual hobby of singing at major league parks, county parks, minor league parks, and thus far I think it's 21 major league stadiums and 110 minor league ballparks.
Oh man, that is fantastic! Congratulations. You got just a few to go to seal the deal, though.
Yeah, most of these Northeast I've failed to score.
Plus, you'll complete it, and then they'll open the Vegas Stadium.
That's right.
Hello, and welcome to Fungos and Fastballs, the podcast of baseball history and trivia. I'm your host, Jerry Dines. Let's jump into today's episode.
Well, you had mentioned the record destroyed at Disco Demolition Night, and that is a perfect segue into talking about the Baseball Reliquary. And unless you're a Scrabble player, and with the Q, that's a nice word there. You might need two on the board, I think. But the word reliquary doesn't come up much. I'm sure listeners would love you to tell us what it is from a baseball perspective.
Well, I do want to say I think it's probably in spelling bees and takes a bunch of people down there too.
Yeah. Can I have a word origin, please?
That's right.
It's really quite simple. A relic is, of course, something from the past, usually with great meaning. It's often associated with religious significance. They're splinters of the cross for Christians. There are a number of artifacts from various religious traditions that are identified as having been in touch with someone who was a saint or a person of religious significance. And so that is called a relic. And so where are the relics kept? In the relic house, which is a reliquary. So it is not simply an invention of the baseball reliquary. It is a very fine word that is used throughout a number of religious traditions to identify where the significant mementos of faith are kept for their tradition.
Again, that connection between religion, but you weren't there at the very start of the Baseball Reliquary. That was back in, 1996 or?
97, I believe.
Yeah.
I was not there until about 2007 or 8 when the 40th anniversary of the publication of Ball 4 was featured as a program, and a couple of my colleagues and I decided to attend the event of the Baseball Reliquary that was featuring Jim Bouton in person. And it was an incredibly robust affair. And we joined the Reliquary at that point. It was 10 years old. We were well into our love of baseball. And we thought that, we'd attend the annual event of the Shrine of the Eternals induction ceremony. That proved to be inspirational and fun, and we decided that we'd try to connect with the Reliquary as much as possible. A few years later, the director of the Reliquary approached me about the possibility that Whittier College might become a permanent location for the Reliquary, or the Reliquary's archives, because at that point, the Reliquary was basically a peripatetic museum. It was one that moved around from library to library, from exhibit hall to exhibit hall, but had no permanent home. And that's how Whittier College and the Baseball Reliquary developed a symbiotic relationship.
And it got its origins in the minds and drive of Terry Cannon, right? The originator?
Yes. Terry was the founder and architect of the Baseball Reliquary, and he engineered, along with me and a couple of colleagues at Whittier College, he engineered the founding of the Institute for Baseball Studies.
Very good. And I want to get into, why don't we get into that now? I mean, you mentioned that initially it was gathered in various places and then now all at Whittier. Do you have any favorite relics that strike you offhand?
Of course, as a Yankees fan, I am very partial to the partially eaten hot dog that was left on a train by Babe Ruth. Now then, the provenance of that artifact is somewhat in question, as is the partially smoked cigar by Babe Ruth that was purportedly found in a brothel in Philadelphia, where he was sometimes known to have walked through the lobby.
Over the phone, you told me about a wonderful donation, a baseball collection of perfect game.
Yeah. Some of the podcasts have produced some unusual correspondence or responses, and one of which was contact with a person associated with a retired physician in Norfolk, Virginia, whose baseball man cave was offered to us by his widow. She was able to send us a collection of perfect game baseballs signed by every pitcher of a perfect game since John Richmond's in the mid-1880s. The collection begins with John Montgomery Ward's perfect game that was 6 days later, at a time when pitching was still allowed underhanded, but the perfect games extend for 22 thereafter, up until the one by the Yankees 3 years ago in Oakland, Domingo Germán. We do not have Domingo Germán's, but we have baseball signed, of course, by Don Larson and Sandy Koufax, as in our generation, probably the two most famous, but also one signed by Cy Young.
Fantastic. That really is.
This must be kept under lock and key at night. The guard walking back and forth. Those are pretty valuable, I guess.
We've been told that it's quite valuable. It is located, or it is housed. It is not on permanent display. It is brought out on rare occasions, but it is on display at various points, and it is in the archives there at Whittier College.
And among that is not just relics from game, but devoted fans and art pieces and I think I
Oh,
saw
we have one of my favorites is one that emerged from a response to a newspaper article. A physician, orthopedic surgeon in Tacoma, Washington, contacted us about whether we would like to have his copy of the Frank Jobe textbook on how to do orthopedic surgery that has illustrations of how to perform the surgeries, including that of Tommy John. Well, on one occasion when Tommy John was the visiting pitching coach for the team playing the Tacoma Rainiers, the surgeon took his textbook to Tommy John, had him sign the page that shows how to do the Tommy John surgery, and then he offered us the signed copy of the book, which inspired one of our artists to do a large portrait of the Tommy John baseball card from the White Sox year during which he suffered the injury that required the Tommy John surgery. So one thing leads to another, and that's really the kind of grassroots growth that is so celebrated by the Baseball Reliquary and now is embraced by the Institute for Baseball Studies.
And you mentioned Tommy John, Dr. Frank Jobe, and both of them are members of the Shrine of Eternals. Tommy John not in Cooperstown, but is in the Baseball Reliquary's Hall of Fame. Again, it's called the Shrine of the Eternals. And tell us a little about that. And
it's different from the Hall of Fame where baseball writers elect and need a 3/4 majority to be able to be elected to the Hall of Fame. Each year there's a list of candidates circulated among the members of the Baseball Reliquary, and from the voting that takes place for the candidates, the three who receive the highest votes, the greatest number of votes, are then elected into the Shrine of the Eternals, and they are inducted in a ceremony that is held annually to recognize them as well as a significant fan and also a significant historian of baseball, how the lore is kept alive.
So I think we have one of your first inductees here.
Well, not your first, but I'm early. I always love a Hall of Fame that has Charlie Brown. This is my St. Louis Cardinals Charlie Brown. And Charlie Brown, though not his favorite player, Joe Slobotnik, is in the Shrine of the Eternals.
That is one of my favorites. The Shrine of the Eternals does not require that someone have excelled in baseball at a professional level. Even that there are minor leaguers. Steve Dalkowski is one of the inductees. He was reputed to have thrown faster than Bob Feller or Ryan Duran, and those were days before the radars were perfected as they now are able to even identify the tenths of a mile per hour that a fastball might be thrown. But Dalkowski was the inspiration for the character in Bull Durham, Nuke LaLoosh. So he has had multiple effects on baseball. There are others who have not played. There are some who, Isla Borders played a few games as a minor league pitcher for the St. Paul Saints. She is an inductee, and ironically or coincidentally, she attended Whittier College and was the first female to pitch in an NCAA game for the Whittier College Poets. There are others who have been inducted who are also not having played the game. Sports writers are among them.
I love that Nancy
broadcasters.
Yeah. I love that Nancy Faust, the organist for the Chicago White Sox, is in there.
Yes, and she played the intro to my performance of the national anthem there at Comiskey Park in 1977. She provided me with the correct key to sing it in. On the ballot this year, we have a couple of very interesting candidates, one whom I have strongly supported for the last 10 years while I've been a member, and that is Annie Savoy, the character in Bull Durham, who delivers the opening monologue that is just a wonderful riff on the spiritual significance of baseball. And this year, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the premiere of Bad News Bears, the film, The Bad News Bears as a film is a candidate for election into the Shrine of the Eternals.
And as a huge fan of baseball movies, I definitely support the original Bad News Bears with good old Walter Matthau there. And I love that movie. I love all baseball movies. And we're going to highlight them in many of them in our podcast. Now, Brooke had a question because we're mentioning all these non-players or quirky players, that are not in the Hall of Fame. But of course, people like Yogi Berra, Jackie Robinson are there. Several prominent Negro Leagues players. What were you asking?
Well,
Brooke?
what designates when you put someone on the ballot who is already in the Hall of Fame versus someone who's not the Cooperstown Hall of Fame? Because I noticed there are a couple, but not everybody, of course.
Yeah,
so
I don't know if Stan Musial, for example, is in there, but
not.
Again, yeah. So what differentiates that in the Hall of the Shrine of Eternals voters' minds?
We should probably put Musial on the ballot because he was able to play the harmonica so well.
That would put him in.
The reason that the Hall of Famers are on the ballot is for their cultural significance for baseball. For Yogi Berra, it was for his incredible wit, unintentional wit, according to some. But obviously for Jackie Robinson and for some of the Negro Leaguers, it was for their contributions to breaking down barriers or for performing in oppressive conditions. There are others who have not been elected, who are major leaguers. Leo DeRocher remains on the ballot, in part because of his feistiness and his willingness to promote the idea that nice guys finish last. You need to have an edge to be able to win. But the real reason that the Hall of Famers get on the ballot is that they have made some significant contribution to American culture, or their story is unusual in ways in terms of overcoming adversity. Jim Abbott, the one-armed pitcher or one-handed pitcher, was elected into the Shrine of the Eternals. Why? Not because he pitched a no-hitter for the Yankees, but because of his having overcome adversity. And although he is not a Hall of Famer, it really takes that kind of distinct story behind the performance that qualifies one to get on the ballot and then to be a fan favorite enough to be elected.
Yeah, like William Hoy, the accomplished deaf Major League Baseball player. I've seen, again, there was a wonderful documentary. You can catch it on YouTube. I think Not Exactly Cooperstown, I think is the name of it. But I've seen some of the live performances. You mentioned, live induction speeches like Doc Ellis's and Jim Bouton's. Any more recent ones that come to mind? Did Bob Costas show up for his one? I saw that he said he was the only living one of that year. So
he was. He graciously sent us about a 6-minute video accepting and expressing general manager for the Miami Marlins and the first woman to hold such an executive position in baseball, is one of the more recent inductees. And she, like Costas, was unable to attend her induction, but was gracious in her acceptance of the award, of the recognition. Most recently, Ron LaFleur. There is the video recording of Ron LaFleur's acceptance speech, in which he just breaks down in tears and expresses appreciation, and then tries to basically elder fans not to take the road that he took through juvenile delinquency and prison and then recovery. And what made his acceptance all the more remarkable was the fact that he flew from Florida to California for his acceptance as a double amputee.
Oh, that's incredible. It really is. Yeah, and tremendous story, as you said, in Jackson State Penitentiary to a major league career. It would have been a real coup if you had gotten LeVar Burton to do the introduction, since he played him in a TV movie.
We tried every angle that we could to secure that, but alas.
And you have awards also for preservation of baseball history. And I love the Hilda Award, named after the famous Brooklyn Dodgers fan who, again, we're going to do a segment on soon, Hilda Chester, with her cowbell.
Yes. So her cowbell inspires the opening for the induction ceremonies each year. Rather than opening initially with the national anthem to precede the festivities, we open with cowbells ringing throughout the audience and by the MC for the day. So there's a clanging that honors Hilda at the outset.
Jerry hopes if we keep doing this for a bunch more years, maybe he'll get the Hilda Award.
Yeah, the Hilda or the Tony Salad.
We got
Award,
like 20
right?
more years to go before he's deserving.
Yeah, after maybe I put in 20 years of preserving baseball history on podcasts.
That sounds good.
We'll get back to
I think I would go to that ceremony just to try and hear how many more cowbell jokes there are. More cowbell jokes. So you mentioned Whittier College's involvement in everything is housed. Can one visit there? Is it just mostly researchers interested in baseball history, or can you walk the halls?
Oh, you can walk the halls, but you better walk the stairs, and I'll get to that.
Okay.
When Terry Cannon first proposed the idea that the college housed the archives of the Baseball Reliquary, he envisioned them being put in the archives of the college library. At that point, the then college librarian was not interested in acquiring any more bound materials or artifacts for storage. But the idea of the Baseball Reliquaries wanting a home had gut-level appeal to me, Charles Adams, and Mike McBride, my two colleagues on the faculty at Whittier College. So we appealed to the administration to allow us to form, with Terry Cannon, the Institute for Baseball Studies, and to use a room on the third floor of the administration building that is accessible only by 42 stairs. Coincidentally, Jackie Robinson's number.
That just worked out that way, or did you have to put in a couple extra stairs to match it?
It was divinely inspired, I think. But the room is ADA inaccessible, so that it was not able to be used by the college for classroom use. And it was lined with bookshelves. And initially, Charles Adams, Mike McBride, and I thought that we would basically create a resource center for students to study the significance of baseball in American culture. And so we combined our respective libraries with the library that the Reliquary had, which brought us to about 1,000 unique or distinct books. we opened with that and with a few of the artifacts and art on display in 2014, and shortly thereafter we received a gift of 500 artifacts and memorabilia from the Negro Leagues players. A collector in Sacramento delivered those to us. We started receiving books. We're now with a library of about 5,000 distinct titles, as well as the art gallery, the artifacts, the collections that we have received of Negro Leagues and perfect game memorabilia. So what started out as the desire for a resource center has become a museum of sorts as well, and it is open to the public at this point because it is staffed exclusively by retired faculty members at Whittier College who are volunteers. It is open by appointment, which we try to facilitate according to guests' schedules, but it doesn't have regular hours at this point, although we're trying to negotiate that possibility with various levels of support from student workers as a possibility.
Brooke, I really don't want to hear you complain about my book collection and baseball knickknacks anymore.
Yeah, I see.
Dwarfed by that.
I see there.
She's concerned when I retire and we downsize, where are we going to put all this stuff?
Well, that's where mine went.
That's where it's yours. Now, you, of course, mentioned the ballot, and the ballot's going out to the voting fans, their voting members. How many members are there around?
Historically, there have been between 300 and 500 members. After COVID, there was some shrinkage, but typically there will be about 300 ballots sent out to members. And if your audience hears this before June 1st and wants to receive a ballot, they can do so by joining, and I will expedite getting them a ballot so that they can return it and have the fun of voting for any of the, I believe this year, 42 or 43 candidates that will appear on the ballot.
Yeah, and it's only a single membership is only $25. I think a family membership $50. You get a free T-shirt, and guess who's got 2 thumbs and is a voting member? This guy. And I am. And the moment I learned about the Baseball Reliquary, I think I don't know what wormhole I was in to find it, but I read about it. I kept reading about it. I said, I got to join this. This is incredible. And yeah, I'm very excited too.
And you get to go to the induction, correct?
Oh, yes. And the induction is open to the public even without membership. So it provides a fun means of outreach for Whittier College and for the Reliquary to engage fans and those who are wannabe fans.
Well, again, I don't know about this year, but I hope to come out to the induction ceremony. And I know Brooke probably, I think we've convinced her. I think we've convinced her that this is worth vacationing. It'll allow us to continue our ballpark trips.
We know someone out there. We'll just stay at Joe's house.
That's right. The induction ceremony this year is scheduled for November the 8th, Sunday, November the 8th. Which is the first Sunday after the completion of the World Series, so that if any of the inductees are involved in World Series or Major League Baseball's final days of the season, it will be possible for them to attend if they should be elected.
Well, I have a question. Before you go, since we do the podcast on history, who would be someone you would recommend we could do a podcast on that's fascinating? I like to get the juicy stories. Jerry loves the stats and all of that. So who would you recommend we put in our lineup for podcast?
Somebody who's had more fingers in baseball that we mentioned earlier, Mike Veck. He's been the owner of some of the minor league teams. He's been an incredible promoter with promotions not quite rivaling his father's disco night, or the Eddie Goodell stunt there in St. Louis. But Mike Veeck has a history of involvement in baseball that is incredible. And I owe him a lot since he gave me my first swing at the anthem.
We could do an all Veeck episode there.
That's right, the Veeck family.
Bill of the Veeck family, the Veeck dynasty.
Veeck is in rec.
Yeah.
Well, Joe Price, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you out and highlight this fascinating entity that is the Baseball Reliquary. And thank you for all the listeners out there. Thank you always to Brooke, my producer and lovely wife, and thanks to all our listeners. We hope you'll keep listening. Like us on your favorite podcast platform. This is Jerry Dines, going back to the locker rooms with Fungos and Fastballs.